Well, good evening, America, and this is Q News Tonight, the world's first and only live daily LGBTQ evening news in the entire world. And it's 7 p.m., Wednesday, May 13th, 2020. Tonight we begin with breaking queer news. We report in our Breaking Q News that there was new research indicating COVID-19 affects the entire body. We've prepared a package on this. Watch this.
You and me.
Almost unimaginable how people could be awake and alert and have oxygen levels that are half normal.
And it gets even more confusing. A respiratory virus doesn't typically cause isolated loss of smell or bumps and lesions on the feet. From nose to toes, and nearly every organ in between. How does a microscopic strand of RNA wreak so much and such varied destruction?
New research is showing that COVID-19 is not just a respiratory virus anymore. Surprising new effects are being seen. This includes leg numbing, cold or weakness to walking. New COVID-19 crisis hits ICUs as more patients need dialysis and not just respirators.
It's an extremely dangerous development that can kill between 20 and 50% of patients. Doctors treating coronavirus patients are seeing a range of odd and frightening syndromes, including blood clots of all sizes throughout the body, kidney failure, heart inflammation, and immune complications.
It can also cause multi-system organ failure, and now it's associated with immune effects in children. Dr. Scott Breckenridge, a professor at the Acute Care Surgery team at the University of Florida College of Medicine, said, quote, "One thing that is both curious and evolving and frustrating is that this disease is manifesting itself in so many different ways."
Well, good evening again, America. It's 7 p.m., Wednesday, May 13th, 2020, and it is time to queer up the news. We are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your stories we're going to tell tonight on Q News Tonight. Tonight on the world's first live daily queer evening news show.
Tonight's news about the gay community and the news from an LGBTQ perspective. Are our gay stories important to you? In headlines, politics, entertainment, gay culture, travel, religion, and more. Reported by respected anchors.
Out of the closet and into the headlines on Q News Tonight. Thank you for joining us, America, to Q News Tonight. We are live. This is a live show, so anything can happen, which you probably already realize. Tonight, we bring you the news of and a perspective from the LGBT community. Be sure to stay tuned as we bring you two amazing good news stories, even despite the coronavirus pandemic. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and this is my co-anchor, Misty Eyes.
Hi, I'm super excited to hear a story about Miss Tina Fey.
And my anchor partner, Napoleon Plays.
Hey everyone, four of my favorite words. Australian Fairy Penguin Parade. Stay tuned for more.
So let's cue up the news.
We are proud to share with you that our LGBTQ television network supports the unique live broadcast Sunshine Cathedral's Sunday Church Service, the world's most popular LGBTQ queer religious broadcast. And we are proud of our diverse 501c3 and charitable support.
Everyone here at Happening Out Television Network wondered if the LGBT community would continue to support gay media during the pandemic crisis. Our April 2020 results for Happening Out were simply amazing.
More than 514,000 watched our LGBTQ shows on YouTube TV, and more than 1,719,000 watched our LGBTQ shows on Facebook TV. Both platforms report that these numbers are dramatically higher than any other live LGBTQ platform in the world.
Combined with one of the most visits of any LGBTQ website in the world. Currently ranked number 10,574 out of 900 million. And that is 100 times more traffic than Florida's number 2 LGBTQ website. Happening Out Television Network, the #1 LGBTQ media platform on the planet, touching more of our LGBTQ community than anyone else. We thank you for your growing support.
So let's queer up the news. First, let's catch up on the news surrounding COVID-19 with our quarantine quickies. The first story tonight is our daily reporting on coronavirus facts, especially important to the LGBT community. We report on the coronavirus case numbers based on the standard acceptance of 7% population of the LGBT community. The world's LGBTQ COVID-19 cases tonight stand at 305,000 infected. America's LGBTQ COVID-19 cases stand at 98,617, while total world cases is now 4,364,000, and the total USA cases stand at 1.4 million cases. We remind you that America is ground zero of the pandemic. The USA is just 4.4% of the world's population, and today, America is 32.2% of all of the world's cases. That percentage is slightly lower today. We report on coronavirus deaths. The world's LGBTQ COVID-19 deaths now stand at 20,479, while America's LGBTQ COVID-19 deaths stand at 5,841. Total deaths worldwide is 293,000, and total USA deaths stand at just over 83,000. America is nearly a third of all COVID-19 deaths on the planet. The USA, again, is just 4.4% of the world's population and now accounts for 28.2% of all of the world's deaths. That percentage is slightly lower today. President Trump and Vice President Pence have said a lot of ridiculous things about testing to the LGBT community. Of course, we've prepared that. Watch this.
Importantly, anybody right now and yesterday, anybody that needs a test gets a test. They're there. They have the tests. And the tests are beautiful. Anybody that needs a test gets a test. And we, in addition to that, are giving out millions of tests. And every day we're doing it exponentially. We're picking up, and what we'll be doing in the very near future is going to certain areas of our country and do massive testing. It's not necessary, but it would be a good thing to have.
Don't you need that, though, Mr. President, to make sure people are safe going back to work? You don't want to send people back to the workplace.
We want to have it, and we're going to see if we have it. Do you need it? No. Is it a nice thing to do? Yes. Other countries do it, but they do it in a limited form. We'll probably be the leader of the pack.
So when you said 4 million tests 7 weeks ago, you were just talking about tests being sent out, not actually being completed? I'm a little confused.
John, I think they're precisely correct that in my first week on this job, we were informed that HHS, I believe IDT was the vendor, Admiral Chouard, that had distributed 1 million, was distributing another 4 million, and we believe they did. But again, those were tests that, frankly, but for the president's leadership, we'd still be waiting on those tests to be done in many cases.
So the media likes to say we have the most cases, but we do by far the most testing. If we did very little testing, we wouldn't have the most cases. So in a way, by doing all of this testing, we make ourselves look bad.
Well, here is Q News tonight's testing facts. As of today, we have 9,936,000 tests that have been taken, and contact source tracing is even dramatically lower. But this continues to be a failure. F for failure. There are 328 million Americans, which means we have only tested 3% of the population. And the medical community recommends a testing rate should be at least 10% for reopening. Despite what Trump and Pence tell the LGBT community, testing and contact source tracing is the #1 solution to pandemic. Q News tonight recognizes our Hall of Fame top states in testing, and as of tonight, that is number 3, North Dakota, which has tested 6.27% of population. Number 2 is New York, and number 1, Rhode Island. You're almost there to the magic number. Q News tonight also recognizes our Hall of Shame states doing the worst job in testing. LGBT America, we hope you don't live in one of these states because number 5, Texas has only tested 1.85% of its population. Number 4 is Idaho. Number 3, South Carolina. Number 2 is Maine. And number 1, well, y'all get it.
Quarantine quickies. House Democrats unveil a new $3 trillion relief bill that Republicans call a wish list. Watch this.
House Democrats are unveiling a $3 trillion plan, making the package the largest relief bill in history. The package includes nearly $1 trillion in relief for state and local governments, a second round of $1,200 payments to every American, more than $75 billion for coronavirus testing and contact tracing, and nearly $10 billion in emergency disaster assistance grants for small businesses. But Senate Republicans are already shooting holes in that bill, some saying there is no need for another federal relief bill. Others saying the bill contains too many measures unrelated to coronavirus.
House Democrats on Tuesday unveiled a massive $3 trillion coronavirus relief package, which includes another round of direct payments to Americans, designed to ease the pandemic's effects on the healthcare system and the economy. Democratic leaders announced the House will vote on the gargantuan measure this Friday, leaving members with less than 3 days to pore over the nearly 2,000-page bill.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi defended the cost on Capitol Hill Tuesday. She said, quote, "The chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank has told us to think big because interest rates are so low. We intend to use those low interest rates to bolster the American people. We must think big for the people now, because if we don't, it will cost more in lives and livelihood later. Not acting is the most expensive course."
Even if the measure clears the House on Friday, the vote is expected to be highly partisan and straight down party lines. There are roadblocks in the Senate where Republicans have said countless times now that they do not see any imminent need for another emergency relief package.
Now, I know I didn't receive my stimulus money the first time, so if this is supposed to be a second one on top of that, then I guess I have 2 that are coming. But I know a lot of small businesses that are still waiting for theirs that didn't get the opportunity to get the funding in the first place.
I'm not holding hope either. I haven't received my first stimulus check either.
I wonder where the bottom of the well is. Where are we going to find $3 trillion more dollars?
You know, they could just print it, right?
Yeah, right. We're going to continuing quarantine quickies tonight. Misty, tell us about Wuhan.
Yes, quarantine quickies. COVID-19 reappears in Wuhan as officials plan to test 11 million in 10 days. We also have a video for you. Watch this.
Wuhan, the former epicenter of the pandemic, has seen 6 new coronavirus cases for the first time since its 76-day lockdown was lifted, and that has prompted fears of a resurgence. In an ambitious plan, officials in Wuhan have now been ordered to test its entire population of 11 million people within 10 days after a new cluster was identified.
The virus reappears in Wuhan as authorities plan to test 11 million residents in just 10 days. Here are the key facts. There are now a small number of confirmed new cases that followed a streak of no new cases recorded in the city since April 3rd, 2020. Wuhan lifted a very strict lockdown on April 8th, 2020, after 11 weeks of residents only being allowed to leave their homes for very limited reasons.
The ambitious target, titled Emergency Notice, saw all districts in the city present a plan on Tuesday for how they will carry out the tests within this short time frame, according to a report from a state outlet called The Paper. An internal document laying out the plan, titled 10-Day Battle, says the elderly and densely populated areas should be tested first. 6 sources from Wuhan's health department confirmed the citywide testing plan to the state newspaper Global Times.
Experts at the University of Wuhan say the widespread testing could help speed up the return to school and work, according to Global Times. The plan would see more than 1 million people tested in the city a day. This compares to around 300,000 daily tests in the entire country of the US and fewer than 100,000 daily tests in the UK. Wuhan expanded its testing in the last 30 days and has already tested as many as 5 million people in Wuhan, the city, alone.
The British-based Global Times reports teachers, medical workers, and public transport workers are all among these people who have been tested. We are providing comparisons of China to the United States. Testing is critical, and China is saying they are going to make a massive commitment, not through the summer, not next fall, but rather 11 million tests in the next 10 days.
China, even with 4.25 times of a larger population than the United States, has a fraction of COVID-19 cases and deaths that America has. Now, critics indicate that China is intentionally underreporting the facts of coronavirus. It's alleged. We have a slide to show you the comparison of what's going on in China and the United States in terms of leadership choices of COVID-19.
The same charge was made by the Miami Herald this week about Florida's numbers reported by Governor DeSantis.
Dr. Anthony Fauci reported yesterday that he had little doubt that the U.S. COVID-19 deaths were also underreported.
I think what we want to take the highlighter to right here is that a single city in China is having significantly more testing, 3.5 times more testing than our entire country in this whole process, and that's every single day. Now, you can say what you want about China, but clearly they're doing something right if they can not only say that, but guarantee it versus project it for months from now in some ephemeral way.
Absolutely. I think they're taking an aggressive approach, and that isn't needed. I think we should absolutely 100% follow suit. And we've also warned on this show specifically, if we reopen too soon, guess what? There might be new cases.
We are in a situation where leadership statistics do not lie. You can make arguments in both countries of the complete accuracy. However, China has 4.25 times our population, and our number of cases is 17 times higher than China's, and our death rate is 19 times higher than China. That is because of the leadership in the United States. Quarantine quickies. We report the greatest increases of COVID-19 deaths are projected to be in deep red states, a new study reports. We've prepared a video. Watch this.
The University of Washington said, listen, we have to change our models and we have to change these projections, these predictions, essentially, because a lot of the states like Texas and Georgia, Louisiana, etc., are starting to reopen their states, which means that a lot of these social distancing rules are starting to be relaxed. And that is essentially the reason behind these numbers going up and up. Now, this all is coming just today as the president, slammed Democrats for wanting to opening up states very, very slowly. And today he said, quote, "The great people of Pennsylvania want their freedom now, and they are fully aware of what that entails. The Democrats are moving slowly all over the USA for political purposes. They would wait until November 3rd if it were up to them. Don't play politics. Be safe."
According to a new study from the University of Washington Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluations, IHME, coronavirus death tolls model states that Republican governors are projected to have greater death increases than those of Democratic governors. The analysis looked at the death toll projections for all 50 states and Washington, D.C., and compared them to the current number of deaths as reported by IHME for consistency.
What's more, the analysis found that Republicans govern roughly 70% of the states in the country with the highest increases in death projections. Of the top 10 states with the greatest death toll increases, 8 are states with Republican governors. All states in the top 10 are projected to have death tolls that rise well over 150% from their current figures, according to the University of Washington model.
The top state is Arizona. The other Republican-led states include South Dakota, Missouri, Alabama, Iowa, Florida, Mississippi, and North Dakota. On the flip side, the majority of the states are looking at a zero to little death increase. Have Democratic leadership. Most of the bottom 10 states have Democratic governors. Even more surprising is the appearance of Washington and New York in the bottom of the list, despite being hit hardest by the virus when accounting for absolute positive cases and even deaths.
Well, it's going to be reflective on November 3rd, 2020. The Republican governors that are pushing reopening beyond the medical science are going to pay for it at the ballot box.
That is true, but not every single Republican governor is doing that. I know I have to speak up for Governor Hogan in Maryland, who's actually doing a great job at leading people to not dying. Quarantine quickies. Grim Reaper pays a visit to the state capitol in Florida over COVID-19. A strange and unique protest is developing against governor decisions to reopen states faster than what they believe medical science is supporting. The group organizing the protests call themselves the Indivisible Movement. They were in Tallahassee yesterday to encourage Florida's governor, Ron DeSantis, to listen to state and federal medical experts.
The body bags symbolize the additional victims of COVID-19 that could result from relaxing shelter-in-place orders. A larger-than-life Donald Trump caricature dressed in a prison jumpsuit joined the protesters, along with the Grim Reaper.
Members of this protest staged similar protests yesterday at the Capitol buildings in Austin, Texas, and Phoenix, Arizona.
I haven't been to any of these kinds of protests, but my big question has constantly been when you see these things and they're going into government buildings with these giant guns, how do they get the agreement to actually have the protest in the first place? You need a warrant to be able to protest. How are they getting that in this quick amount of time?
It's a shocking protest. It is probably going to be successful. When I watched it this morning, it brought me to a complete stop as the Grim Reaper was at the top of the Capitol steps and people were walking up the steps with body bags.
It's a visual message as well as an actual message, and it's clever, but also they're out there not staying at home and sheltering in place too.
We queue up our segment called Coronavirus Good News. After we finish our quarantine quickies, we like to lighten it up a bit. We've reported all of the statistics and facts for today, but now we want to report on some things that made us smile today in Coronavirus Good News.
Coronavirus Good News. Tina Fey hosts telethon that raises $115 million for New York. Rise Up. Tina Fey hosted a virtual telethon Monday night that raised $115 million for those in New York impacted by the coronavirus. A-listers from across the entertainment world made appearances during the one-hour broadcast, put on by Robin Hood, the state's largest poverty-fighting organization. Robin Hood said 100% of donations made, quote, will provide support for food, shelter, cash assistance, health and mental health, legal services, education, and more, helping fellow New Yorkers build their lives as the city moves toward recovery and beyond. A highlight came in the last 1 minute because Tina Fey did not know how much money they raised and asked for the number. When she reads $115 million in her surprise, she begins to cry. And that makes this Q News Tonight Coronavirus Good News. Watch this.
We can't leave our children or any of our neighbors behind. Together, we're going to lift them up and help 2.5 million people who need to work and eat get back on their feet. I am told that the number of donors is well over 100,000 people, from kids with piggy banks to million-dollar gifts. And no matter how big or small, they all share that spirit of generosity. And in the end, that is how we'll win. Okay, let's look at what we've done tonight. The envelope, please. Is this real? Okay. $115 million. We did this. You did this. We are difference makers. $115 million. What a great day for New York. Thank you to everyone who gave and gave and gave from all over the world. There's so much more to do. Please visit robinhood.org. Donate. Share it. Tell your friends. Please. Let's keep this going. Robin Hood's site will stay open for donations after tonight's telethon because this battle is far from over. Thank you.
Well, we end tonight's broadcast of Q News Tonight with the big finish. Short story mentions of LGBTQ news and news with a gay perspective. So here we go. First on Q News Tonight's The Big Finish. Facebook reports that they are going to pay content moderators $52 million in a PTSD settlement.
As a lifestyle expert, I've moderated a lot of content based on lies and aggression towards minority groups. How do I apply for this, Facebook? Please tell me it's easier than filing for unemployment. I have to be able to get a piece of that $52 million somehow.
By the way, I also want some money, so help me out. I'm still lacking my stimulus check as well. But you know what? Misery loves company, and hysteria is contagious. Everyone in the country that has Facebook has suffered PTSD. It's not a choice. It's a reality.
I'm suffering from PTSD sitting at this table. This makes me wonder how much the Federal Reserve will have to pay the American people in a decade from now once they sort out all the trauma caused by Donald Trump.
Literally.
We continue in the big finish. Officer drives over a 66-year-old man laying on a Florida beach.
Welcome to Florida. Unfortunately, the gentleman did not seem to be wearing a body cam. Remember to always record your beach outings, folks. You could find a hot ginger or just a cop wanting and waiting to make his sequel song to Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer.
Wait. I need more information. Was the police officer drunk driving? Was he texting while driving? Was the old man buried in the sand? Like this, I need more. What?
America, you know I live in what everyone calls the freak show state. I think the only way this story could get any more Florida would be if it involved bath salts and an alligator.
Literally.
The big finish. Company sells fake muscles and boobs for people's Zoom dates.
And my ears perked. As much as I am a spokesperson for authenticity, I'm going to allow this. Why not turn each other on more when we have to stay safe and stay home with no way of receiving tactile support? Stimulate the mind even more. I love toys. I can think of many cute guys with great faces who could benefit from this.
So, drag queens, it's all about smoke and mirrors, and nothing in drag is real. Trans people is about faking it till you make it. I think, authentic or not, our community could definitely benefit. If these are good muscles and if these are good boobs and whatever, trans men and women across America would be buying these up.
Misty just said good boobs. Don't look. Don't look away. Don't look away. This joke is just too easy. So I'll just say, unfortunately for Napoleon, they don't offer all the products a strapping young man like Napoleon might want for a long-distance date, if you know what I mean. The big finish. No Context Wednesday. IKEA announces it would like to remind you that it's not okay to masturbate in their stores.
It was probably another Florida man. Of course, this is a problem. This is a big problem. Mattress stores and other furnishing locations always encourage the patrons to see the products as if they were using them at home. That means invite somebody over. Have a fun orgy in the store. Pull out your GIMP gear. Seduce the stuffed animals. If they want your money, you should know how to use it. But that doesn't mean masturbating. Simple.
That means getting arrested and going to jail. What saddens me is that this actually had to be announced. And who's masturbating? Are the Republicans going to the bathroom and masturbating and tapping their feet? That could be happening.
I'm tired of this. We've got to make America great again. First, Democrats come after our guns, and now foreigners are coming after our penises. How far are these people willing to push Fox News and Trump supporters? The big finish. Happy 34th birthday to Robert Pattinson.
I like the idea of foreigners coming after our penises. Pattinson is known for dying immediately in the Harry Potter series and for being a lust-filled, sparkly vampire in Twilight. What about either of those two things makes a birthday celebration necessary or on point? Just death.
I, like every girl in the United States of America, has watched all the Twilight series. I personally have been obsessed with vampires since Anne Rice's interview. But in this series, I developed a new fascination for werewolves. Oh wait, I mean happy birthday, Robert.
Pattinson once got rid of a stalker by going out to dinner with her and ranting about all of his problems.
That's clever.
She never bothered him again. From Twilight to Harry Potter, as you've heard, now Batman. He has been in everything, and he's not too bad to look at either. I would gladly listen to your problems over dinner, Mr. Pattinson. Did I mention gladly? And happy birthday.
Daddy. Who for whom?
The big, I know. That's why I was confused. The big finish. On this day in 1940, Winston Churchill says, "I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat," in his first speech as Prime Minister before World War II.
Blood, toil, tears, and sweat. This has got to be one of the most erotic speeches given to a nation on record. And I've got to say, I hope that more of these come in the near future.
By the way, that comes from a guy who is so horny during COVID-19 pandemic, he wants to have sex with trees. Winston Churchill was a douche, and I use that word loosely. On February 24th, 1954, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, during a cabinet meeting, said that all gay people should be arrested and then offered medical treatment.
Winston Churchill was also a huge asshole.
Douche and asshole.
He was very rude, egomaniacal, and so crass that his quips are still being repeated today as a way to not behave around anyone civilized. I'm not talking about Napoleon. He is also the ultimate proof that you do not have to be likable to be respected and sound like a leader to your people. To those who support Trump and say that those are the only ones that do anything of personality, they know nothing about history. Churchill was awful in many ways, and in the same breath, I could make the case that he was one of the greatest prime ministers in Britain's history. Trump suffers from many of the same personality of Churchill, but lacks a critical trait: competency. Churchill guided a nation through some of its most trying days, defiant of Hitler at every turn. He was a symbol of resolve for his entire country. Britain could be German today if it wasn't for Churchill. Trump stumbles through this COVID-19 crisis like a blind man. The contrast could not be more clear. He promised blood, toil, tears, and sweat. And after he delivered all four, he was dismissed by his party at a moment's notice because he no longer served their purpose. Trump's golden years will not be kind to him because as soon as he is done being president, no one will care about him again, just like no one cared about Churchill.
That's it for today's news for the LGBTQ community on the world's first daily LGBTQ evening news show.
Remember, if it's important to the LGBTQ community, it's important to Q News Tonight. But you must help us. Click subscribe on YouTube and share this news.
We are literally out of the closet and into the headlines, and this is the only source of live LGBTQ news in the entire world. Your community needs your support.
You are not alone. We will get through this crisis.
We are here with you, and this is Q News Tonight.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Al Ferguson, and on behalf of Misty Eyes and Napoleon Plays, we will see you daily and tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Good night.